This is the Domain 3 Comprehensive Review, the episode that ties together everything we built across 9 videos. Domain 3 carries 13% of the CISSP exam. Architecture is the skeleton of everything else in security, and this review shows exactly how all the pieces connect.
Think of Domain 3 as the structural engineering of security. Design principles are the codes, security models are the blueprints, hardware is the foundation, and cryptography is the lock system.
We will walk through each content cluster, identify the cross-domain connections that show up as exam scenarios, work through the cryptography exam traps, and build a security model comparison matrix that makes scenario questions mechanical to answer.
And we will close with the final anchor for the entire domain and the bridge to Domain 4, communication and network security, so you go into that domain knowing exactly how the two connect.
Stick around for the cryptography exam traps later in this video, the 5 patterns that trip candidates who know the concepts but confuse the specifics. Starting with design principles and security models, the most tested content in Domain 3.
Starting with design principles, the rules every architect checks before writing a single line of code or specifying a single hardware component.
Let me introduce the team real quick.
Michael here. This is the kind of topic I could talk about for hours.
Hi, I'm Bella. I went down a rabbit hole last night and I have thoughts.
Hi, I'm River. I like connecting dots across different worlds. This is perfect for that.
Good to have everyone. Here we go.
The design principles from episode 3.1 are the most broadly applicable content in the domain. Least privilege appears in Domain 1 risk management, Domain 2 asset security, Domain 5 identity and access management, and Domain 7 operations. It is a universal control principle that connects every domain.
Defense in depth and zero trust appear together in network architecture questions in Domain 4. The principles are defined in Domain 3, but their implementation questions often appear in other domains. Understanding where principles originate and where they are applied is the cross-domain skill the exam tests.
The fail, secure versus fail, safe distinction is a standalone scenario question type. The answer depends entirely on what is being protected. Server room locks fail, secure, fire doors fail, safe. The question tells you which context, so read it carefully.
Security models are the most common Domain 3 scenario source. Describe a behavior, identify which model it implements. Bell-LaPadula is confidentiality, no read up, no write down. BIBA is integrity, no read down, no write up. Those 4 rules resolve most model questions.
Clark-Wilson is commercial integrity through transactions. CDIs are the protected data. TPs are the only modification path. IVPs verify state. The scenario trigger financial records. Well-formed transactions, separation of duty built into the model. If the scenario is about transactions, think Clark-Wilson.
Brewer, Nash, Chinese wall, is triggered by conflict of interest scenarios, consulting firms, investment banks, organizations with competing clients. The dynamic wall that builds based on access history is the defining characteristic. The trigger word is conflict of interest.
Trusted computing base, reference monitor, and security kernel questions are answered by 3 properties, always invoked, tamper-proof, and small enough to verify. If a question asks about the reference monitor, those 3 properties are the answer regardless of how the question frames it.
Hardware security CPU protection rings are hardware enforced privilege levels. Ring 0 is kernel mode, Ring 3 is user mode, and a privilege escalation attack crosses that boundary. Meltdown Inspector attack the Ring 3 to Ring 0 boundary using CPU performance optimizations.
Trusted Platform Module protects individual systems. Embedded in the motherboard, stores keys and PCR measurements. Hardware security module protects enterprise infrastructure, external device at FIPS 140, 2 level 3 or higher. Both prevent software, only attacks on cryptographic keys. Know which scenario calls for which device.
Cryptography scenarios are the most precise question type in the domain. These are rules, not guidelines. Advanced Encryption Standard for Symmetric Bulk Data, RSA ECC for asymmetric, Diffie-Hellman for key exchange only. Secure Hash Algorithm 256 for hashing MD5 is broken.
Public key infrastructure components as a scenario CA issues. RA verifies identity. CRL is offline revocation. OCSP is real-time. The trust chain runs root CA to intermediate CA to end entity. Compromising any CA compromises the entire chain below it, as DigiNodar proved.
Transport Layer Security 1.3 requires forward secrecy through ephemeral Diffie. Hellman IP Security AH is authentication only. IP Security ESP is authentication plus encryption. Tunnel mode wraps the entire original packet. Transport mode only wraps the payload. VPNs use ESP in tunnel mode.
SCOM-IM uses hierarchical public key infrastructure, and X.509 certificates. PGP uses Web of Trust with no central CA. The trust model is the differentiator. Post-quantum. Shor's algorithm threatens RSA and ECC, and NIST standardized CRYS tells Kyber and dilithium as replacements.
For every cryptography scenario, identify the service required. Confidentiality means encrypt with recipient's public key. Authentication means sign with sender's private key. Integrity means hash the message. Authentication plus integrity together is a digital signature.
Physical security from episodes 3.6 and 3.7. The domain connects to Domain 7 security operations through physical access monitoring and environmental security. Physical security is not just Domain 3. It runs through multiple domains because physical access underlies all controls.
CPT principles are environment-level controls. They reduce the cost of security by using design to deter crime. The 4 principles: natural surveillance, natural access control, territorial reinforcement, and maintenance. These are preventive controls applied at the facility design stage.
Fire suppression wet pipe is fastest but risks water damage. Dry pipe is air, pressurized but still uses water. Pre-action requires 2 triggers and is the server room water-based standard. Clean agents like FM200 eliminate water risk entirely.
Biometric accuracy is a 3. Term concept. FR is the rate of accepting wrong persons, a security failure. FR is the rate of rejecting authorized persons, a usability failure. CR is the crossover point where FAR equals FR, the accuracy benchmark. Lower CR means better biometric performance.
Tailgating versus piggybacking is a favorite exam distinction. Tailgating is without awareness, piggybacking is with it. Both are violations. Mantrap prevents both physically by limiting occupancy between the doors to one person.
Physical access card security. Proximity cards are RFID and can be cloned without physical contact. Smart cards use cryptographic chips and are resistant to cloning. CAC and PIV are U.S. government certificate-based standards. Multi-factor physical access adds a PIN or biometric to the card factor.
The physical security to cryptography connection. TPMs provide hardware root of trust for physical systems. Smart cards are cryptographic devices enabling physical access multi-factor authentication. Physical security and cryptographic controls are deeply integrated in high-assurance environments.
Domain 3 does not exist in isolation. Its principles appear throughout every other domain. Understanding these connections helps you answer scenario questions that span multiple domains. The exam frequently presents scenarios that require cross-domain thinking.
Domain 1 threat modeling connects to Domain 3 security architecture. This Tier ID methodology identifies threats. Domain 3 design principles address them. Defense in-depth responds to the threat model. Zero trust responds to the assumption that any control will eventually fail.
Domain 2 asset classification drives Domain 3 cryptographic selection. A secret asset requires advanced encryption standard 256 encryption. A restricted asset requires encrypted transmission channels. The classification level determines which cryptographic standard applies.
Domain 4 network security is built on Domain 3 cryptography. Transport layer security covered in Domain 3 public key infrastructure is what makes HTTPS work. IP security, the virtual private network protocol using advanced encryption standard and Diffie Hellman from Domain 3 is a Domain 4 technology. The protocols in Domain 4 use the algorithms defined in Domain 3.
Domain 5 identity and access management implements the least privilege principle from Domain 3, access control models from Domain 3, discretionary access control, mandatory access control, role-based access control, attribute-based access control are implemented by the systems covered in Domain 5. The models are defined in Domain 3. The implementation mechanisms are covered in Domain 5.
Domain 7 security operations connects to Domain 3 physical security through facility monitoring, environmental controls, and disaster recovery site physical requirements. Hot, warm, and cold site physical configurations are Domain 7 disaster recovery planning. But the physical security controls at those sites are Domain 3.
For the exam, River and Bella, when you see a scenario that spans multiple domains, identify which Domain 3 concept is in play: least privilege, a security model, a cryptographic operation, or a physical control, and apply it first. Domain 3 provides the framework, other domains implement it.
Cryptography exam traps are the question patterns that trip candidates who understand the concepts in general but confuse the specifics. Let us walk through the 5 most common traps in Domain 3 cryptography questions.
Trap 1. Signing versus encryption key usage. You sign with your private key so others can verify with your public key. You encrypt with the recipient's public key so only they can decrypt with their private key. The exam presents scenarios with these reversed. Always ask yourself, what action is being performed and who needs to verify or decrypt?
Trap 2. 3 data encryption standard questions. If a scenario asks which algorithm is appropriate for a new system and 3 data encryption standard is an option alongside advanced encryption standard, 3 data encryption standard is always wrong. NIST deprecated 3 data encryption standard for new systems. Advanced encryption standard is the answer every time, without exception, regardless of what other algorithms appear in the answer choices.
Trap 3 Diffie Hellman is key exchange, not encryption. It establishes a shared secret between 2 parties. When a scenario asks which algorithm to use for bulk data encryption, DH is never correct. The DH shared secret is used to derive a symmetric key.
Trap 4 MD5 for any security purpose. MD5 has known practical collision attacks. The exam will offer it for hashing, password storage, or signing. It is wrong in every case. Secure hash algorithm 256 is the current standard.
Trap 5 IP security AH for confidentiality. Authentication header authenticates the source and detects tampering. It does not encrypt. If confidentiality is required, AH is wrong and ESP is correct. Know the difference between what AH and ESP each provide.
For the exam, Bella and River, when you see a cryptography question, first identify the security service required, confidentiality, integrity, authentication, or non-repudiation. Then match the service to the correct operation and algorithm. The traps all exploit candidates who reverse operations or apply deprecated standards.
Okay, it is quiz time. Let's find out what's stuck. Think through each question carefully before you answer.
Liked. Subscribed. Good. Every like pushes this higher so more people can find it.
A financial institution implements a system where external data inputs, UDIs, must pass through prescribed transformation procedures, TPs, before they can modify audited financial records, CDIs. Which security model does this system implement? The correct answer is D. Clark, Wilson Commercial Integrity, enforced through constrained data items and transformation procedures.
A security architect is designing a new enterprise system and must choose between recommending 3DES, an advanced encryption standard for encrypting sensitive data at RIST. What is the correct recommendation? The correct answer is A. Advanced Encryption Standard 3DES is deprecated by NIST and should not be used in new systems.
An industrial control system engineer states that security patches cannot be applied to production PLCs during active manufacturing because the plant cannot tolerate downtime, which CISSP principle best explains why this is an acceptable architectural trade-off. The correct answer is C. In industrial control system environments, availability dominates. The CIA tried. Downtime has physical process consequences that outweigh many security controls.
Domain 3 is complete. Here is what we built across 10 episodes. Design principles are the engineering codes of security architecture. Security models formalize those codes mathematically. Hardware security enforces them physically. Cryptography provides the mathematical tools. Physical security protects the hardware. Cloud and Internet of Things extend everything to the modern environment.
The cross-domain connections are the CISSP's real test. Least privilege from Domain 3 appears in identity and access management in Domain 5. Cryptography from Domain 3 powers the network protocols in Domain 4. Physical security from Domain 3 connects to operations controls in Domain 7. Architecture is the skeleton.
The cryptography exam traps resolve to 5 rules: sign with private key. Never recommend 3 data encryption standard for new systems. Diffie, Hellman is key exchange, not encryption. MD5 is broken. And IP security AH has no encryption. Know these cold and eliminate wrong answers on site.
Domain 4 is next: communication and network security. The transport layer security, IP security, and cryptographic concepts you now own from Domain 3 are the foundation. Watch that first Domain 4 episode now and see how architecture becomes infrastructure. Subscribe and keep the momentum going.
Thank you for staying with us through all of Domain 3. Architecture is the skeleton to coup. And now you own it. Domain 4 is where that skeleton gets the network infrastructure built on top of it.
Stay curious, everyone.
Professor Erica signing off.